before Lindsey comes this morning, I wanted to share a scripture with you. We know that as Christians, we are called to be a witness in this world. And that is what she is going to do this morning. It's what she does every day of her life. But I want to say a special thank you for coming. This is nerve-wracking for a lot of people to be able to do. But it is what God calls us to when God has done amazing things in our lives. But I want to share with you quickly before I ask Lindsey to come, Psalm 66, 16 through 20, and it's in your bulletin. Come close and listen, all you who honor God. I will tell you what God has done for me. My mouth cried out to him with praise on my tongue. If I had cherished evil in my heart, my Lord would not have listened. But God definitely listened. He heard the sound of my prayer. Bless God, he didn't reject my prayer. He didn't withhold his faithful love from me. Telling about the goodness of God. I am thankful that you all have started this tradition of sharing your faith story. You know, your faith story is yours alone. It's no one is better than another. It is just how God has been at work in your life. And so we will continue to ask you, several of you, you're all here for a reason, right? God has done something in your life. And sometimes we need to share it with others and bless others with it. So that is why I asked Lindsey if she would come today. I was observing her life, observing all that. I totally did that. Aren't you impressed? I did that. I got it off Facebook, and I put it through like 10 different things, and I was screaming, going, why don't we have any pictures of Lindsey? Why don't we have any pictures of Lindsey? I should have just emailed you. Yeah. You do. So, Lindsey, I'm going to ask you now to not hide in the background, and if you will, come and share with us a bit of your story.
You shouldn't hide. And you teach little people. As I said, I don't talk to big people, but let's see. I argued a lot. I didn't want to do this because mainly because I grew up in the church. Never really did anything major. I was born on a Friday. The following Sunday, my mom had me in church. And I realized that just because I grew up in the church doesn't mean that, things didn't happen. I grew up and we went to the Salvation Army. I attended every Sunday, went to Wednesday church. I was part of their kids program, did Sunbeams and Songsters, which is kind of comparable to like Girl Scouts and choir. I became a commissioner Sunbeam, which was really big because at the time nobody in our church had done it except me and my sister. And so that basically means we earned the highest honors for what's comparable to Girl Scouts. And at the age of 12, I decided to officially join my church when other people did not. Most of my friends growing up didn't go to church. They wanted to stay home on Sundays. They wanted to sleep in. I still went. So other than like being a typical teenager, I asked myself, when did the trials really begin? Well, I guess they do begin when you're a teenager and people don't want you to go to church. But I never doubted it. I always reminded myself that God doesn't give you more than you can handle. And so he must have thought I was a strong girl because finished high school, whatever, at the age of 22. Thought I had life figured out, as most 22-year-olds do. I had a house. I was engaged. I was in my junior years of college. What else could go wrong? Well, 3 months before my wedding, he called it off. Not only did he call it off, he called it off and told me I had a week to get out of his house. So I have a wonderful family. They helped me move out. We got all moved, thank goodness. And, because, kids are young and dumb, 8 months later, I decided to go back. It happens. But he was a travel nurse. Things didn't work out, but we kind of had a mutual agreement. You're not here. I am here. Live in my house. Okay, great. So I stayed in the house, and I took care of the house, had my dog, was able to finish my senior year of college, and stayed there until my first year of teaching. So had a place to live. He wasn't there. No big deal, right? Well, the summer before my first year of teaching, I met Ethan. And it's a whole other story, but I was helping a friend move down to Camp Lejeune, and that's when him and I met. So God does work in mysterious ways. I was still living in my ex's house, but had met Ethan, but we weren't together, so it's okay. So him and I did a long-distance relationship for a while, and eventually I moved down to Georgia so that I could be closer to him. Well, little did I know, 6 months later, he would be deployed. So now I was in Georgia by myself in a brand new house that we had bought, only lived there a month, and he was deployed. So down here, the only people I knew really were my coworkers who did not live near me because I worked off of Indian Trail. And he was gone for a good 8 months. Before he left, he said he thought we should end things. I told him absolutely not, because, him having his military background, he said that he's never seen things end happily with a deployment. Well, I proved him wrong. Because we're still here. So now we're here with the deployment under our belts. We have a marriage. We're happy. We decided to have kids. We always knew we wanted 3 kids. We always said we wanted happy, healthy kids. We didn't care if it was boys or girls. But happy and healthy was the key. In May of 2013, we were blessed with our baby girl. We did everything right. I breastfed, I cloth diapered, made her baby food. That'd be great. So, everything you could possibly think of, I was that crunchy mom. I didn't want to expose her to anything bad, and everything was great. So, May of 2015, we were blessed with Fiona. Everything the same. Cloth diapered, made her own baby food, never exposed her to harsh chemicals. I was that weird oily mom kind of thing, so we were on the right track. Well, here goes that God doesn't give you more than you can handle thing again. So mine and Ethan's running joke is, and Jocelyn laughs about it too, is that for Jocelyn's second birthday, she got a baby sister because we were in the middle of the birthday party and my water broke. And then for her third birthday, she got cancer. If we didn't joke about it, we probably would break down constantly, but we asked God why. We did everything naturally. We never exposed them to chemicals. We weren't sure, but here we were faced with cancer laughing at us. So before the actual diagnosis, how we figured it out was Ethan and I were taking pictures, and we were kind of on opposite schedules, so we couldn't really talk to each other, but I had her doing her third birthday pictures, and her eye was glowing. And it was glowing when she looked a certain way. So about a week had passed. Our schedules finally intermingled because he worked weekends. I was a teacher, so we were never around each other, really. And we both asked each other about it. And so on her actual third birthday, we took her to the pediatrician. Our pediatrician told us they saw absolutely nothing wrong, but that if we wanted to go to the eye doctor and we felt the need, she would give us a referral. Needless to say, we felt the need. Well, due to our work schedules, I took Jocelyn and my 1-year-old to the doctor without Ethan's help that day, but his aunt came with me. And on the drive to the eye doctor, I joked with her and said I'd go to the moon if it meant helping my children. Well, little did I know I'd be traveling all over Georgia that week to get a final diagnosis. The eye doctor told me that something was wrong, but they couldn't tell me what. They weren't allowed to because it was above them. She also asked me where my husband was. I said, well, he's at work. And she's like, well, what's he doing tomorrow? I said, work. She goes, well, he's not working tomorrow. You need to go to this doctor. So we went up 575 to the next doctor. That doctor, too, gave us the same thing. Well, something's wrong with your child. I can't tell you what, though. However, how close to Choa do you live? I looked at him and said, heck of a lot closer than I live here. I said, we drove 2 hours to get to you. So it's a holiday weekend because my children were born at the end of May. So we didn't have answers. We knew something was wrong, didn't know what. So enter prayers and Dr. Google. We finally get to the specialist. He comes in with about 8 other people to finally give us a diagnosis on June 1st of 2016. He walks in the door. I look at my husband and I say, he's going to tell us she has retinoblastoma. Ethan, in denial. Love him to death, but he was in denial. And he said, how do you know? I said, just trust me. He walks in and tells us she indeed has retinoblastoma. So we questioned, we were like, what do we do now? We have a 1-year-old at home, and we have Jocelyn. We had a lot to process. Do we fight? Do we take the eye? Do we get other opinions? We always asked why. We wanted to know what was going on. We also worried about Fiona because she was a year old and didn't understand why we kept leaving. This diagnosis, it comes in 2 different forms. It comes in non-hereditary and hereditary. So we did a lot of praying, we did a lot of asking, and we wanted to make sure that we would get through this. I heard over and over that God doesn't give you more than you can handle. And a lot of people told me that, a lot of coworkers, several different people, friends over the phone. And I said, well, I must be really strong because this is entirely too much. Child shouldn't have to go through it. But I reminded myself, faith over fear. So Jocelyn indeed was diagnosed with non-hereditary retinoblastoma. We tried to figure out why or how, and the doctor couldn't give us answers. So Ethan and I decided to fight with every means that we possibly could. We didn't want her to grow up thinking that we didn't at least try. A month later, here we were finally with what was supposed to be only a 6-month journey to start. We would have a port placed, chemo 2 days in a row for 6 months in a row. Along with chemo, she would undergo anesthesia every time. And each month she'd have to have pictures and laser treatments in her eye. While this occurred, Ethan's job would no longer allow him time off. He ran out of PTO, so we had other choices to make. Does he continue to not be able to help with the children and be there for Jocelyn's treatment, or do we do something about it? Well, prayers were answered. The Marine Corps called him. So off to southern Georgia on orders he went. But this meant that they would give him family leave. So during the week, we were by ourselves with the help of my mother and his aunt, of course. And anytime she would have treatment, he was able to come to the treatment. But it also meant that he wouldn't be able to leave the base unless medically necessary. So he would leave the base at 4 a.m. in the morning because they wouldn't let him leave the night before, and he'd meet us at the hospital every time. During this time, we would go each month to treatment and be told that the cancer was responding, so we thought we were doing great. Each month, we would pray to get good news and results until we reached the end of her 6-month treatment through the port. It was the time we were waiting for, that ringing of the bell, which is what every cancer patient wants, the signal that treats that everything's done, we're great, family loved it, friends watched it, she rang that little bell. First month back, we received news that it was back. Every time we went back, we would be told that the tumor from last month was gone, but another 1 or 2 popped up. It was time to start direct injections into the eye. So here we go again, more chemo, more lasers, more treatments. Each month we would go in with the heartbreaking news that the cancer came back. No matter what we did, it would return. She went through countless eye exams under anesthesia, laser treatments, direct injections of chemo, and it still came back. Not to mention a child who was devastated and thought mommy and daddy were leaving her. The doctor decided it was time to change treatments, obviously. The treatment that they just recently were able to perform in Atlanta, or we could go to Philadelphia. Money was tight, so time off work didn't exist, so we chose Atlanta. Little do we know there would be a bump in the road. Jocelyn would have a severe reaction to the intraarterial chemo. They told us when we signed the paperwork that there was a 0.0001% chance. Our child fell in all of those chances. Her eye would swell up like the size of a golf ball. No one would listen to us. A month later, we would end up in the hospital as an emergency because of the amount of swelling in her eye. This is where she would be put on high doses of steroids, antibiotics, to see if her vision could be saved or if the swelling would actually go down. We were told that we would be ready and that we should be ready to not have vision in that eye, but only time would tell. Well, time did indeed tell. She would have no vision in that eye. Now we had an almost 4-year-old, no vision in her right eye. The next treatment would come and go, and we were now going every 2 weeks. She was being put under anesthesia every 2 weeks. Did I mention I had a 1-year-old at home who didn't understand why she couldn't go and thought that Jocelyn was having fun time with mommy and daddy, and she wasn't? Every few weeks we would go back to be told there were more tumors that popped up. However, the ones we treated last week or the week before were gone. The doctor felt great. However, as parents, we did not. Finally, Jocelyn went 4 months without any tumors popping up. The doctor seemed hopeful and said everything was starting to look great and in an upward slope. Nothing could go wrong, so we thought. So that's when Ethan and I decided to try and start for baby number 3. We were in a great place for treatment. Everything should be fine. Well, here goes that God doesn't give you more than you can handle thing again. It took no time. 2 months later, I was pregnant, but the cancer had come back as well. Not only did it come back, but it got worse. She had several small tumors in her eye and 2 large ones. So back to every 2 weeks visits, being put under anesthesia, having eye exams, direct injections of chemo, and laser treatments. Did I mention I had a toddler at home and I was pregnant and I couldn't eat breakfast when we took the 3-year-old and 4-year-old to get treatment? So we were back to square one again. Why was the cancer coming back? Why did she have to continue to go through this? We continued to fight every 2 weeks. Our running joke continued. How many more tumors would pop up? We continued this for the next 6 months. If we didn't joke about it, we'd have broke down in front of her. Until the doctor came in, and it had only been 10 minutes. I looked at Ethan and said, "This isn't good." And he looked back at me and he said, "I don't think so either." He told us that he had lost count of the number of tumors that had popped up in the matter of 2 weeks, that there was nothing else he could do. Ethan and I both looked at each other and said, "There's no question, take the eye. Life over vision." So now here I was, 8 months pregnant, toddler at home, and almost 5-year-old who had to lose her eye. How do we get ready for this? How do we explain to a kid who has been through so much that nothing worked? We had to get rid of that sick eye. As parents, we made the choice. We sat her down. We explained that there was nothing else the doctor could do, that her eye was super sick, and that it had to go. We went through all those processes of grief, I guess is what you could call it. We fought long and hard to only be at the place we were at, where we were told we wouldn't be at. We were told 6 months and she'd be done. We joked to the doctor and informed him that the eye had to come out before the baby did. He got a good laugh out of that one. Surgery day came 2 weeks later. The eye would be gone. The doctor enucleated. So what he did was the eye and the optic nerve is removed and a plastic former is placed and a muscle is stretched over it. This would allow for some eye movement eventually. During her recovery, we would have to continuously hold her down because she would scream. They placed a plastic conformer in her eye that would hold the socket so that it wouldn't shrink so that she could eventually have her fake eye. So numerous times we would hold her down while she was screaming, "Mommy, this hurts. Why do you have to do this?" We would hear that, but we would hear that there were no more tumors. However, we would have to figure out this new life with a child and make her love herself for who she is. Well, luckily Jocelyn has the bright personality that she has because she owned it. Once the eye socket healed, she was able to get fitted for her new eye. Angela Cotton made a wonderful one. She hand painted it in front of her. She allowed her to see the whole process, made impressions of her eye, and she did a great job. Like I said, luckily Jocelyn owned it. In April of 2018, God blessed us with Ryder. Our family was complete. Life started to seem semi-normal again. We found our routine. At birth, Ryder was checked for RB since his sister had had it. He was clear. However, at the age of 6 months, the scare would return. Ryder's eyes were glowing just like his sister's. Of course, we called and got him in right away. We were told he had blonde fundus. Basically, because he was born blonde-haired, blue-eyed, he didn't have enough pigmentation, so his eyes would glow the rest of his life. Thank goodness. We did not have to go through this process again with yet another child. God wasn't done, though. Back to the God doesn't give you more than you can handle, Ethan would be deployed. So now here I was with a 1-year-old, an almost 5-year-old, and a 3-year-old at home. We went through a 9-month deployment. It definitely had its ups and downs, but we survived. All this to say, faith over fear. Fear will conquer your life and turn things bad quick. Faith in God will always be there, even when you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Many of us have had those times in our life that one foot in front of the other, right? But God is with us. And Lindsey, thank you for reminding us that even in the darkness, when you can't see that light at the end of the tunnel, God is still there, and you are a witness to that. So thank you very much.